Alright, I know this isn't exactly the most revelatory video ever put out, but since I couldn't get one out last weekend, I wanted to throw something together real quick for fun. Nothing too special, but I'll do a little bit more than just dryly list places. It's more chances for me to talk about fantasy locations in particular, plus this video just seemed fun to me. So let's go through every location in the Immortal Empires trailer that was shown, a month after it dropped because timing is not my forte. I'll even throw in some lore tidbits and other stuff, so it's not just me going, this is the Empire. This is Kislev. This is a badly made video. If they released a list or something of every location, I haven't seen it, so do keep in mind I'm going entirely based on what I think these places are. All good? Wonderful. Let's get started with this very informative slideshow version of the Immortal Empires trailer. Also, I'm not chaptering this video. It changes scenes every 3 seconds or less. I'm too lazy to do that, and it had turned the video progress bar into sliced bread. Now, first off, we've got the opening shot, because those come first. This one's easy. The meetings between Karl and the rest of the legendary lords takes place in Altdorf. That symbol that briefly flashes on those two flags is Karl Franz's personal heraldry, and even ignoring that, it just makes sense. Aside from the clearly imperial architecture, no other place in the Empire is quite as suited for it. Altdorf is the most modern and, for lack of a better word, proud city in the Empire. It's the capital, has the colleges of magic inside its boundary, the main Reichsguard fort, and it's overall the place to send people if you want to bring them together. Plus, reaching it is probably easier than most other cities in the Empire, and it itself is the safest place to be, I'd argue. Middenheim might be more defensible, but Middenland itself is swarming with beastmen. Reichland has them, I mean everywhere does, but nothing like elsewhere in the Empire, and don't forget that the Empire is, at least by the standards of other nations, a safe place to traverse. The Underway, for example, is a goddamn battlefield, so good luck trying to bring everyone together at the Karazhan Core. Kislev is very hostile because it's winter half the time and super winter the other half, and that's ignoring, the Chaos Marauders. So for all these reasons, the trailer has them meet together in Altdorf. Karl Franz is a wonderful host, I'm sure. Moving on. Immediately after this, we're shown beastmen attacking a town. Aside from it clearly being imperial, it's close to mountains, so for the location this could be at, I'm gonna go with either Ubersreich, a town in Saarland where Gelt's at, or one of the more eastern provinces. The farther you get from Altdorf, the more beastmen and other baddies there are, and even having said Reichland is relatively free of them, it's not uncommon for the Chaos Gods to use beastmen as an early scouting or raiding force ahead of the main invasion. With that in mind, consider that the Chaos Gods might have sent them to Reichland to prevent all these legendary lords from coming together and forming an alliance. They know Karl's plans would ruin them, so they've come to stop it. Such is the power of Karl Franz. Next up, a brief shot of some orcs, and I'd say they're in Kislev. This is going to be one of those scenes where I don't have too much evidence of a specific place, but Grimgar Ironhide has in his lore rampaged through Kislev before his army was frozen. So if you'd like, imagine this assault takes place before the big legendary lord YouTuber meetup. Grimgor went to Kislev for a good scrap, Katarina rolled her eyes and froze the entire army, and then Grimgor walks away mildly annoyed that he needs to find more orcs. I mean, it's basically what happened in lore. Speaking of Kislev, we've got Archaon, Sigvald, and Daniel assaulting a Kislevite city, and I'd put good money on this being Prague. That city has gone through more chaos invasions than any other. On the one hand, this means it's highly fortified, and those three clowns and their forces are probably going home disappointed later that night. Hell, there's decent odds Gotrek and Felix are waiting on those ramparts. Good luck getting past them, you edgy pricks. But on the other hand, it means Prague is super haunted. Seriously, it's in the top 3 haunted places in Warhammer Fantasy, behind only the Black Pyramid and Castle Drakenhof. It's called the Cursed City, for God's sake. Not a fun place to be, but by God do they know how to kill Chaos Warriors. Now we've got Cathay, and that's pretty clearly the Great Bastion there in the background. I'd say this could be at really any of the main gates you can find in the campaign map. Not much to say, really. I feel bad for that one lady right there. She looks like she's a dragon-blooded lord, but not one of the dragon siblings, so at the end of the day, I do not have high hopes for her here once the scene cuts away and Chaos Marauders turn it her gravy. Next up is a dwarf hold under siege by orcs and goblins. Now, realistically, this could be almost any of them, but I have a theory it's Zufbar. It's one of the premier locations of the Dwarf Engineering Guild, and you can see a lot of gyrocopters flying around in that trailer. Also that one gyro bomber that gets rocked like a hurricane. Rest in piss, Short King. Rest in piss. After Teclis opens his mouth and starts ruining everything, we briefly cut to Malekith, Mommy Marathi, and the edgiest name for a character ever, leading a whole lot of Dark Elves. We can see high elf buildings in the background, most of them on fire, so I would say this takes place in Nagaryth. You know, where the fancy Sword of Cain that Alariel draws every campaign is located. The Dark Elves are always trying to pick that damn thing up again, and even beyond that, it's the most frequently invaded of the High Elf kingdoms by far. Theoretically, it's usually under the control of the High Elves, but it changes hands every 5 minutes. It's like a divorced couple arguing over their kid. Nagaryth may belong to you during weekdays, vile Asur, but we Druki fought hard for our weekend visitation rights. Something like that. Anyways, I'm sure he's about to get sent back home by Alariel and Alethanar seconds after the trailer ends. He never wins in the end. He wins in the end time, sure, but that doesn't count. Cut back to Altdorf, Thorgrim forgets that the word short can be used without referencing the dwarfs, and then it's time for the lightning round. We have Archaon himself, and this probably takes place at the starting point of Archaon's campaign way up in Norska, where the realm of chaos and reality more or less blend together. It's all orange and spooky, there's my evidence. Next up, Mazdamundi and Kugath are duking it out in what I presume is a very Nurgle-infested Lustria. If Kugath found his way to Lustria, things are getting bleak. As for why it's Lustria and not anywhere else, well, for one, that's clearly a jungle, and two, while yes, the Lizardman pyramids are also spaceships, they don't really move them around much, like, ever. And you can see one floating back there. I'm pretty sure they weren't even revealed as spaceships until the end times. It's potentially anywhere in Lustria, though. Could be outside Hexawaddle, since that's where Mazdamundi resides, but it could also be anywhere else. Next up, we have me, Sojek, pointing at the screen because it's Gotrek and Felix. I'm pretty sure it's an Imperial city, but beyond that, there's not too much to make it stand out as to which one, because it is very on fire. To hazard a guess purely based on Gotrek and Felix, I'd say Nuln. Nuln is the location that probably has the greatest amount of Gotrek and Felix books taking place in it, so maybe after foiling Thanquol's plans for the 1000th time, Skarbrand thought he could do it better. I will say it is a very bold choice for CA to canonically kill off Skarbrand for the trailer. Sorry bud, but Gotrek and Felix fought one greater demon of each god and Be'lakor at the same time. You and your two backup dancers are fucked. Next up is Tzeentch attacking a high elven city nestled away in the mountains, and I gotta say, not looking good for the elves. I'd say this could either be in Crais or Torri of Ress. Crais' capital is also located near mountains, but so is Torri of Ress, and Eltharion specifically had to prevent the city from causing the end of the world when Grom started smashing waystones. So I think it makes sense that Kairos would try and expedite that by going to Yvresse for round 2. Or, well, round 1 for him, but round 2 for Eltharion. Next up, we have Nikari in an Imperial location. That is all I have. It's a place with a castle in the background and a statue of Sigmar. That is like 80% of all locations in the Empire described right there. I'm assuming it's a more rural part of the Empire because you can see a lot of trees in the background, but really pick a place that isn't Middenland and you've got a decent shot at being right. Looks like Archaon made it into Prague now, just gonna be more embarrassing when he loses. After that, Wulfric the Wanderer has just killed one of those kick-ass statue monsters Cathay has. This scene probably takes place in the same one as the first place Cathay was shown in the trailer, so really, again, take your pick for which gate in the wall it is, and you're probably right. Rest in piss, Dragon Lady. Wulfric probably called you a bitch in 5 different languages, either immediately before or after this. Be'lakor is also in Cathay for some reason. The Great Bastion is invisible, so this could be taking place somewhere like Nangao or any other minor city really, but it could also just be taking place at another gate and we're not looking in the direction of the wall. After Karl Franz makes sure everyone knows they are acting like stupid children, we cut to the first of the Hopeful Order counterattack scenes. It's Leoncor, Barkin Bin, Joan of Arc, and a whole bunch of Grail Knights about to shish kebab some undead. You can tell this takes place in Bretonnia because their stupid, dumb, outdated castles are in the background, and Bretonnia has historically had some problems with undead in their borders. Originally I wanted to say that this takes place near the monastery that Heinrich Himmler attacked, but the mountains are in the opposite direction of the charge. So I'm gonna go with that this is near Mosilone and that they'd finally decided to clean that place up. I hope everyone involved dies in the process. Hey, I hope they get the Necromancer too, that way they all stay dead. One resurrecting Bretonian super soldier is enough, I don't need more. I don't want more. Next up is the White Dwarf himself and Tyrion fighting back-to-back against Dark Elves and Skaven outside a Dwarfhold in the second coolest scene of this entire trailer. Now, this one might be a stretch, but I think this might be taking place outside of Kareza Karak itself. You can see sunlight streaming in, and the Everpeak has a very large above-ground entryway. Even aside from that, its underway entrance and walls are no doubt also mind-bogglingly huge. Plus, while yes, he does show up even in smaller battles to save a few unlucky dwarfs, the White Dwarf would certainly be fighting to defend the capital of the Everlasting Realms. As for why Tyrion is there, well, Dark Elves are there, and he doesn't need any encouragement to kill those. As for why the Dark Elves are there, I don't know, they're pricks. Plus, there's few other holds I can think of that would not only be just this massive, as well as justify the logistics of a combined Dark Elf and Skaven invasion. Coming up next, we've got Orion, Blowdart, Shotgun Skink, Doomguy, and the respective armies giving some beastmen the business in Athol Loren. I was initially surprised that they would allow anyone to help them fight inside its borders, but after thinking about it, maybe they considered Elizabeth as a strange sort of nature spirit or something. After all, they don't give a shit about invading Athol Loren, they're always seen as opposed to chaos beyond all other things, and the Lizardmen aren't exactly known for their personalities, at least as far as in-universe characters are concerned. Who knows, maybe they just rolled up and started butchering beastmen, and Orion was just happy to have some new hunting buddies for a change. A Tomb King construct absolutely butchers a Vampire Coast one, like, oh my god, look at this shit. This might be taking place in the Maelstrom, the place where Count Noctilus resides. If any character in this setting was just going to decide randomly that he needed to die ASAP, it'd probably be Cetra. Or maybe Khalid is behind this invasion. She does hate vampires. Speaking of, Grom the Paunch and the Imperishable himself are duking it out in Nehekara. And I'm sorry, Grom fans, but there's no way he's leaving that battle alive. Cetra's on the other side. Even looking past that fact, Grom is also riding around on a chariot, and there's no way Cetra's gonna take that lying down. No one drifts better than Cetra. This could be taking place near Khemri because there's a lot of pyramids in the background, but there's pyramids everywhere in Nehekara. There are some noticeable mountains nearby, so maybe this takes place either nearby those mountains with the dwarf prospectors in them or Karak Zorn. Grom thought he'd warm up to fight Eltharion by running over some stunties, but had the gall to do it on Cetra's turf, so now it's time for him to die. Finally, we have the best scene in this trailer, where Gelt and Zhao Ming are sending a swarm of Skavens straight to the Horned Rat personally. By personally, I mean with thousands and thousands of pounds of gunpowder. Look at this bit. Look at it and weep, for it is beautiful. You've been welcomed to Estalia, now it's time to be welcomed to Nangao. It does make sense for the battle to be happening there, I'd say. There's mountains in the shots, and the city is tucked away in the mountains near the Great Bastion. Plus, Nangao is one of the chief sources of arms for Cathay, and we know Zhao Ming and Gelt love their artillery. As for why his sister isn't there, could be a couple of reasons. One, I could just be wrong, and this isn't near Nangao at all. Sorry for a disappointing answer, but I'm more or less making these assumptions up for all these places as I go, so you'll just have to live with it. But for a more lore-friendly reason, there are several. Since Meow is the favorite child of the Dragon Emperor, maybe she's having her own meeting with Father Dearest on what to do, like an infinitely less cool version of the one Carl's having right now. She could also be trying to defend the Bastion itself, who was clearly going through some shit during this trailer, so maybe she told her brother to keep watch over it while she took care of business. And lastly, and oh so wholesomely, Zhao wanted to show his best friend Gelt all the cool toys Cathay has, and Gelt was excited for his field trip there. Nothing can convince me these two gentlemen wouldn't be the best of buds. They both like cannons, they're both users of the lore and metal, king shit only between these two men. And for the final scene in the trailer, we've got Karl Franz and Katarina leading a massive combined army of the Empire and Kislev against Archaon and a horde of marauders and demons. This absolutely takes place in the northern regions of Kislev where the nation ends and Norsca and the Chaos Wastes begin. It could be in Troll Country, but I like to imagine this takes place in the little divide ahead of Prague where the Chaos invasion would usually funnel down through in Warhammer 1 and 2. Archaon got kicked out of Prague, and now Karl Franz and Katarina have come to finish him off for good. Good riddance, you cringe lord. Not into the world this time, motherfucker. And to the best of my abilities, that's every location shown in the Immortal Empires trailer. Like I said, nothing super amazing or in-depth this time around, but I couldn't get a video out last weekend, so I wanted to throw something together real quickly for all y'all. And if you're into Warhammer, I assume you're into these little map insight kind of deals. I consume this kind of shit like crack. As always, thank you to my wonderful channel members. I can't think of a mildly amusing comparison for this video, so I'll just leave it at thanks for going the extra mile. If you'd like to support the channel, feel free to subscribe or become a member. Either way, thank you for watching and take care out there. Nah, I bet I know what you're thinking. He forgot the Chaos Dwarfs, he did it before and he's doing it again. I didn't forget. This takes place in the Chaos Dwarf realms. As for where, throw a rock. It's a forge, there's green-skinned slaves, laborers walking around, and there's an evil overseer laughing. That's it. What do you want from me? List every single Chaos Dwarf location this could be? That's all of them. I'm pretty sure evil forges just pop into existence around these guys. In fact, given that they worship Hashut, that's not at all unlikely. Anyway, Chaos Dwarfs coming soon, I'm hyped.